here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting October the 1st, 2018. If this is your first time here, I'd like to say welcome, and if you're returning, I'd like to say welcome back. Before getting into this week's reading, I just want to take a moment to thank those of you who checked out last week's reading because I worked with a brand new deck in my collection. You may remember I worked with the Steampunk Tea Leaf Fortune-Telling Cards by Karen Dalton Smith. And so that was new to me because I have never been interested in tea leaf reading in the traditional sense where you're looking at tea leaves in a cup. I've never been interested in that. But the cards really spoke to me when I saw them online. So I want to thank those of you who checked out the reading, who sent me lovely comments, and for those of you in particular who felt inspired to acquire the deck yourself, or that if you had the deck that you felt inspired to work with that as a result of seeing last week's video reading. So I want to thank you one and all for that lovingly wonderful support. And I'm saying that to say I'm going to continue that trend this week and unveil another new deck in my collection, one I'm really excited to work with. So the deck is Kipperono by Paris de Bono, and Paris de Bono is a fortune teller in Sydney. So I will be leaving a link to his channel. He has a channel on YouTube, so if you want to check him out, I will leave a link to that in the description box below, as well as a link to his site so you can learn more about Kipperono if it speaks to you, and you can find out how to acquire it. Now, Kipperono is a variation of a Kipper card deck. So you may remember a few weeks ago I worked with a Kipper card deck. I was brought back into relationship with Kipper, and ever since then I've been wanting to add new decks to my collection. So I came across this deck, and what I like about it is that it seems to be a little bit obscure, and I'll clarify that. Obscure in the sense that I don't see a lot of people working with it. I don't see a lot of people talking about it. But when I saw the images online, it really struck me. It is photo collage, so if that speaks to you, it is that, and it uses vintage imagery. So I love the images. Every single image in this deck, I love. And that's rare when you can get a deck and you say, I actually love every single image in the deck, but I do. So I've been working with it, and I love how it speaks to me. And so I'm very excited to see what's in the cards this week in the Oracle Outlook space with this deck. So once again, I'm working with Kipperono by Paris de Bono, and I have the deck on hand. So I'm just going to jump right in and shuffle the cards. And as I shuffle the cards, I'm focusing on my usual intention for these weekly general readings, and that is asking the cards to show us what we need to know for the week ahead. What information would be most helpful getting us through the week? I'm feeling one more time will be great. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. And fan the cards out. And when I work with Kipper, I like doing a line of 5, much like when I work with Lenormand. So I'm looking for 5 cards in the fan that are getting my attention. We have 2. And one of the things that I've noticed personally when I work with this deck is that the cards seem to just jump right out at me. So I have 4, and now I'm looking for the final card. And I'll take this one. So I have 5 cards selected. Now I'm going to take the remainder of the deck and put it to one side. And so now I have the 5 cards face down in front of me. And when I work with a line of 5, I like to look at the middle card first. For me, the middle card always represents the central issue, something we're being asked to focus on, or in this particular case, when I work with Kipper, Kipper unfolds like a story, and this would be like a storyline. So this would be the heart of the story. So taking a look at the card, we have, ooh, I like this card. Okay, so here we have receiving a gift. So as the focus, for some of us, it may be working with a gift or a talent. This card for me represents our gifts, talents, and abilities, which is a nice kind of way to reintroduce last week's reading where I talked about our sense of spirituality. So if you're a spiritual person, this may be about you working with your spiritual gifts, your talents, your abilities in that regard. but it could just be, generally speaking, whatever you feel is a gift or a talent you possess. This might be the time to focus on that. And remember, one time in the past I talked about this idea about gifts or talents or abilities. In that sense, the gift is ours, but it's also for other people. Like, we are the person who possesses the gift. And so our job as the custodian of the gift is to hone it, is to perfect it, those kinds of things, and then share that gift with other people because it's really meant for them, right? So if you resonate with that, what gift, talent, or ability could you focus your time and attention on this week with the intention of, how can I share this with other people? Who would best be served by it? Because now, remember, the card is about receiving a gift. So this is about giving and receiving, right? So it could be that. So it could be, as I'm saying that, it could be, we could be on the receiving end of a gift. We could be on the giving end of a gift. But this could just be about gifts and talents and abilities that are given and received. Talking about an exchange. With that, another thing that could happen is that for some of us, we may be needing to focus on an offer that's being presented to us. Right? Again, going with the idea that this card can represent something that's being presented. So there may be something that's being presented to us that may be needing our time, focus, and attention this week. Right? And as I'm saying that, I'm getting another aside. Is that going with the idea about presenting something, someone may be using a gift or a talent in terms of a presentation for other people. Now, another possibility with receiving a gift is also a card that talks about parties. So there may be a party that is being focused on for some of us this week. A party, a visit, some kind of celebration, a holiday. I tend to think of all those things. Any occasion where a gift is being exchanged could be the focus for some of us this week. So again, receiving a gift in the middle of the line could be talking about a gift, talent, ability, an offer being presented, or a visit, a party, celebration, or a holiday. Any occasion where gifts could be exchanged. So that's receiving a gift in the middle. So now let's take a look at the card on the far left, which would open up the story or get the storyline started. And so here we have, opening things up, we have a long way. So a long way is a card for me that can represent this idea about going the distance, right? It usually represents a long journey, something down the road, something along the way, something that's been a long time coming. As the first card starting the story off, this could just represent something that's been a long time coming, is now showing up, it's now presenting itself, that kind of thing. Or somebody who's been waiting a long time for something, because this card can represent patience, but it's usually patience or waiting for something over a long period of time. This card is about time and distance, right? So it's a long time or a long way, right? So if we're talking about, because I'm looking at the image on the card, if we talk about metaphorically, one's journey through life, then this could just be saying it's acknowledging the idea of coming a long way. Like, it reminds me, and I'm dating myself, and I'm not a smoker, but there is an ad, or was an ad, by Virginia Slims. I don't even know if they still make those. But the tagline for those commercials was, "You've come a long way, baby." So I'm seeing that, or I'm seeing that tagline in my head. So for someone in particular, or if it resonates with more than one person, fantastic. But the idea here is about, you've come a long way. So maybe with the idea of receiving a gift in the middle of the line, talking about celebrating something. So let's celebrate the fact of how far you've come. Look how far you've come in your metaphorical journey through life. That's what I'm seeing with a long way. So now let's take a look at the card in between a long way and receiving a gift. Okay, so here we have sad news. So sad news is a card that can talk about receiving news or messages, going with the idea that on the image on the card there is a stack of letters. So for me, this can represent news or messages. And in Kipper especially, this can rule all kinds of communication, right? So it doesn't necessarily just have to be something in print or something written. It could be a phone call, it could be an email, it could be a text, all those kinds of things, all forms of communication. But the downside to this is that the news or message could lead to or create some upset or disappointment, right? Because sad news is a card that represents being upset or being disappointed, right? Or, having a sense of sadness, but it comes as a result of some sort of news, message, or communication, right? So now if we go with the idea here that sad news is coming after a long way, so this could just be news or messages that comes a long way, which would imply, remember now, a long way is about distance, so news or messages that comes a long way, and as a result of that, whatever that news or message is, it creates a sense of upset or disappointment, right? So there is that. Another possibility here is that something we've been waiting for a long time arrives, but the arrival leads to some kind of upset or disappointment. So those are two possibilities with a long way and sad news. So now, sad news is an interesting card because it's what we call a cause and effect card, right? So if the long way card is the cause, and I read it like that because the letters are on this side of the line, so the card that's behind it, because it's closer to the stack of mail, would be the cause. So something that we've been waiting for a long time, or something that's come a long way, would be the cause. And then it affects receiving a gift, right? So it could just be a matter of maybe the upset or the disappointment. Now remember, some of the possibilities that I offered with this, one was about a party or a visit. So there may be, for someone in particular, there may be some upset or disappointment with somebody who's supposed to visit and they're coming from a long way, right? And so it could be a matter of something happening where that person's not able to come, there's been a change in plans or something of that nature, but it leads to this receiving a gift being affected, right? So there is that to consider as a possibility with sad news. But again, sad news represents news or messages being received, and as a result of it, there may be a sense of disappointment, sadness, or upset with that. So now let's take a look on what's on the other side of receiving a gift. And so here we have, so now here we have court. So court is a card that can represent justice. And so this could represent things having to do with legal matters. So there may be some upset now, for some people in particular, regarding something having to do with a legal matter, right? So there is that. It could also be, too, that there may be some sense of needing to have some sort of procedure done. Court can represent procedures, something having to do with administrative procedures. It could be going bigger, and I tend not to do this in this channel, but this could also be something having to do with politics. It could also be about government, and so for some of us that could be local government. So this could be something having to do with City Hall, something having to do with local government, something having to do with the city in your area, things of that nature. I'm thinking like City Hall, Town Hall, those kinds of things. It could also be having to do with something of a public nature. So this could be some sort of government or federal facility in your area that you're having to do business with, or you're having to get some sort of procedure done with or through. So there's that. It could also be local, it could be state, so something having to do with the state that you're living in. Or it could be federal government, or something larger than that. So there may be something having to do with sad news or upset or disappointment if I mirror the cards. So sad news is mirroring court. So for some of us, there may be some sort of sense of upset, disappointment, or sadness having to do with something on a political scale or in the political landscape this week. And so what would you need to do to kind of help yourself move through that sense of upset, sense of disappointment? It could be, again, we receive some news or messages, maybe having to do with something of a political nature, and our reaction to it may be upset, sadness, or disappointment, right? So there is that. And with that possibility, receiving a gift is moving towards this card. Receiving a gift is a movement card. So here we have cause and effect, sad news, which prompts moving towards court, right? So there's some sort of movement. So as I'm saying that, this could actually be something that galvanizes or creates a political movement. If I go with the idea that receiving a gift is actually a movement card, this could be more of a political movement. So we're seeing that maybe. People who are maybe wanting to use their gifts, their talents, or their abilities in a more public way, maybe serving in a more political way, those kinds of things. But I'm seeing that as a possibility here with court. Now, court could also just be, again, if it's not in the larger political sense, having to do with the political landscape, then this could just be about needing to handle something having to do with some sort of procedure, something having to do with some sort of administration, or something having to do with administrative procedure, or again, some kind of legal matter or legal situation, right? So that is with court. Now, court can also be needing to deal with the court of public opinion. That's what I look at this, going with the idea that court can represent a court or courthouse, and then public affairs, right? So this could just be being saddened by the court of public opinion, right? So there's that as well. So now let's take a look at the last card rounding the line out this week, and here we have, okay, so here at the end of the line we have the Mind card. So the Mind card in traditional Kipper cartomancy is known as either gloomy or murky thoughts. So with that, it could be suggesting too, if we go with the idea that there's sad news, there's disappointment, there's upset, it may be having to do with something having to do with politics or the political landscape. Then as a result of this, because mind comes after a court, then it could just be a matter of this sense of being negative, being pessimistic, some sort of sense of confusion or uncertainty, or this idea about doubt, right? So for me, mind can represent confusion, uncertainty, and doubt. So it could just be, and you know, I'm filming this on the day after the hearings where Dr. Blasey Ford was heard giving her testimony and Brett Kavanaugh gave his testimony. And as I'm filming this, I do believe that right now the Senate Judiciary Committee is holding its meeting to vote on confirming Kavanaugh, or at least starting the process of confirmation, right? So that is going on. So as a result of that, there may be a great sense of upset, disappointment, and sadness around that whole thing. And as a result of that, it creates a great deal of uncertainty and doubt for those of us here in the United States. I'm a resident of the United States. For those of us in the United States, in terms of the future, regarding the political landscape, excuse me, some of us may have doubt. Some of us may be uncertain. Some of us may have a sense of confusion, like we just don't know what's going on. We don't understand why things are happening the way they're happening, those kinds of things. And as a result of that, we could become, now that's a matter of choice, we could become negative, we could become pessimistic, we could have a negative outlook, those kinds of things. So that is mind. Now, mind could also be too, like if we're dealing with maybe something more personal regarding a legal matter, a personal legal matter, or wanting to see justice in some way being done, because again, this is a justice card, there may be a sense of like not being sure how things are going to be moving forward. So what I want to do is, I want to take another moment to draw another card around the mind card, because mind is also, like sad news, a cause and effect card, right? So I want to see what is on the other side of mind, because we have court on the one side, right? So let me see, I'm going to draw another card to see what else do we need to know about this. So I'm going to shuffle with that in mind. What do we need to know about the effect of this confusion, this doubt, this uncertainty? All right, so now I'm going to fan the cards out, and I'm going to pick one card. So I'm looking for the one card that gets my attention, and it was this one. now I'm moving the cards over so I have space here. Let's take a look at this card. Okay, so here we have Good Gentleman. So Good Gentleman is a person card. This card can represent an older man. It can typically represent an older man. It could also represent somebody who's in a position of authority, right? Because Good Gentleman can represent somebody who's got experience. I tend to look at this card as someone who's older and wiser. So this is a man, because going again with Good Gentleman. And typically this could represent somebody who's helpful. But since I have the Mind card here, and remember now the Mind card is cause and effect, then the effect will be whatever the negativity or whatever the confusion, the uncertainty, the doubt has, it will affect this person, this man. So this could be, again, an older man. This could be an experienced man. This could be a man who has some position of authority. So those are all the things. So it will be very interesting this week to see how this plays out. So again, if we go with the idea that court could literally represent court, so now I'm seeing something having to do with the Supreme Court, possibly, right? And so there could be some sort of confusion, doubt, or uncertainty about this person. And so, you know, the obvious thing here would be that this is about Brett Kavanaugh. And so I tend to not want to get too political, so I'm only saying what I'm seeing in the cards. I'm not offering my own personal opinion or my own personal commentary here. Because one of the big things that I believe as a reader is that it's my responsibility, regardless of whatever the situation is that I'm looking at, it is my responsibility to be as neutral and as impartial as possible. And if I'm offering my own personal commentary, that shows bias and I'm being partial. And so it's saying that the situation for me is hitting too close to home, right? So for me, I'm just offering that these cards are suggesting that there may be something having to do with the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh that may be upsetting, disappointing to people, going with sad news, and that there may be some sense of confusion, uncertainty, or doubt, or a negative or pessimistic attitude around the procedure, the administrator. And this could be also to the administration itself. If we go with the idea that this talks about administration, this could be the Trump administration. So there would be, again, all those kinds of things. So now, if we make it not so large and not about the political landscape, I'm taking another look at the cards. So again, another possibility here could be is that someone is dealing with a legal matter or some sort of procedure with some kind of administration, and you're not quite sure about how it's going to go going forward, or that there is a legal matter or procedure or something of that nature, or seeking some kind of justice that's going to affect an older man or a man who's in some kind of position of authority, right? So this could be a father figure, grandfather, an uncle. It would be somebody who's older than any of us who are watching this video, right? Because in Kipper, in the story of Kipper, we are always, and I'm talking about we the collective we, so myself and anybody who's watching this, we would always either be main person 1, which is a male figure, or main person 2, which is a female figure. So Good Gentleman in relation to either main person 1 or main person 2 would be somebody older, right? So again, if it's more personal, it would be somebody who's older than you, somebody that you may have considered to be helpful to you, but somebody who's going to be affected by whatever this procedure is regarding court and mind. Right? But again, I'm going to go with the other idea that as a collective energy, there may be some effect on a man in a position of authority that has to do with politics and the political landscape as we are currently experiencing it. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and end this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm James Himm Mitchell, and I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week, and that if you are on the receiving end of any sad news, any disappointing news, any upsetting news, I'm a big believer in honor how you feel in the moment when you receive the news, and then ask yourself, what can you do to love yourself a little bit more and allow you to move through those feelings and emotions. So on that note, again, James and Mitchell, rounding out this week's Oracle Outlook. Take care.